This year has been exceptionally dry in terms of Nintendo related news and reveals, with only one or two major titles coming out and ports to fill in the gaps. It's kind of astonishing how even with Thousand Year Door, this year could be described as underwhelming at best. In the beginning of the year, Switch 2 rumors were rampant, with the new one coming out what felt like weekly. After the report of the Switch 2 launch getting delayed, there has been not only a drought of official news, but also in rumors. Then, in the most uneventful way possible, we got confirmation of not only a Direct in June, but finally also the existence of a Switch successor being revealed before March 2025. It's genuinely so comical how this is probably the biggest news Nintendo has shared all year, and it's just a tweet. Well, now that we have a crumb of news of what will happen this year, I think we can confidently say we can accurately predict the rest of the year. But in all seriousness, I assume this June Direct will at least fill in the gaps of what will happen between now and the announcement of the Switch 2. I genuinely don't think that this Direct will announce anything groundbreaking or interesting, but it's still fun to think about, even if there's not very much to go off of. I'm going to be putting my predictions in one of 5 tiers. Definite for reveals I think are 100% going to happen, probably for ones I think that are most likely, but not certain about, possibly for ones I think that are still on the table, reach for those I think that could happen but leaning towards the unlikely side, and lastly, definitely not for things that I think will happen in the future, but not in this Direct. Right off the bat, I'm going to jump right into the definitely predictions, and for this category, I genuinely don't think there's anything I could predict here with 100% confidence. Like I mentioned earlier, there isn't much going on in terms of official news or rumors, at least none that I think will pan out by the end of the year. We know that the June Direct will not mention anything about the Switch 2, so that takes a lot of potential games off the table. Speaking of which, here are the games that I slot in the definitely not tier. With less than 1 year left of the Switch 1, I genuinely doubt we'll see any of these games be revealed in this Direct. For most of these games, I expect them to be year 1 or 2 titles for the Switch 2, and for others, I feel like they would require the better hardware that's going to come with the successor. This is the specific case I believe Xenoblade X and Kid Icarus Uprising fall under. Both are phenomenal games that were way ahead of their times technically, as it's still very surprising how they were able to run these games on their original systems. If I were making this video about the Switch 2 lineup, then they would be in the definitely or probably categories. However, that's not this video. Next up for games I think will probably happen, first one I predict is a Mario sports game. While baseball is the last major sport Mario hasn't played on Switch, he's also participated in sports medleys in the past. The last sports game, Mario Strikers Battle League, launched in 2022 and was developed by Next Level Games, who's currently developing the Luigi's Mansion 2 HD release. Before that, we got Mario Golf Super Rush in 2021, developed by Camelot. Since then, Camelot has not worked on another game, so it's not that wild of a prediction to say we're due for another sports title from them, especially since my expectation is that the rest of the year will be filler titles. Camelot has also worked on the last Mario Sports compilation game, Mario Sports Superstars for the 3DS back in 2017, so it's possible that we may see one of these again. Last year, we got the surprise drop of Metroid Prime Remastered in the first Direct of the year. Right now, we're still patiently waiting for Prime 4 to get its first trailer, or even a teaser, or even a mention. While I think it's still possible we may get a Prime 4 reveal, I think it's very likely we'll see a Prime 2 shadow drop in this Direct. I couldn't tell you for certain if it's going to be an upscale release or a remaster, as I think it could go either way. Rumors suggest that the Prime 1 remaster was finished years ago, so they may have just started the remasters for 2 and 3 in the meantime. However, I think the safest prediction is that we'll see a Prime 2 upscale shadow drop. As for Prime 3, I think that's dependent on how close we are to Prime 4 and whether 2 and 3 are getting remastered. If Prime 4 is a Q4 2024 game, I think we'll see a Prime 3 drop alongside Prime 2. If Prime 4 is a 2025 game, I could see Prime 3 launching after September Direct instead. On the topic of Metroid, we are reaching the 7-year mark of Prime 4's initial reveal. Since then, we've gotten a new 3D Mario, another new Zelda, 2 Fire Emblems, and 3 Xenoblades, and also 2 Mario RPG remakes that would have sounded impossible in 2017. Even with all these other games launching since then, we still have no concrete information on the game besides the fact that development had restarted in 2019. We've been at least drip-fed rumors, job listings, and one PNG, but nothing has really pointed to a launch window. The last unofficial news we heard was that the game's development was focusing on polishing cinematics, which sounds like something they would do when the game is near completion. Considering the Switch officially has a year left, that would mean Prime 4 has to be revealed in the next 12 months, right? It's entirely possible this game launches after the Switch 2 does and just releases for both systems in order to be accurate to the original reveal's promise. I personally think at the latest it will be a Q2 2025 release, which means I think we could possibly get a teaser in this direct. Going even further, if they are targeting a 2024 launch for Prime 4, I could see a full-blown reveal. I would like to think that there will be one major announcement in this direct, and this one could single-handedly make it go from mid to memorable. Even if it's not launching this year, it's not unheard of for Nintendo to reveal a game for a following year in a direct aimed for the current year. So we'll have to see what happens. One of the more recent rumors is a Nintendo project with the codename Banquet being developed partially by ND Cube, the developers of every Mario Party game since 9. We haven't gotten a Mario Party title since Superstars in 2021, so we're definitely due for a new one. Banquet being the internal codename makes me think that this is a larger scale Mario Party for bigger groups. This could mean bigger boards to accommodate 8 or more players, or even taking the car mechanic from 9 and making it team-based, where there's multiple players occupying each car. I imagine a Banquet-style Mario Party would fill the niche everybody went to Switch tried to fill, except with Mario branding and not literally the worst game of all time. The only reason I don't think this is more likely for this direct is because it seems like something that would launch on Switch 2, but it wouldn't shock me if this was a 2024 launch. Kirby has generally had one new game released almost every year. Last year we got Return to Dreamland, and before that we got Forgotten Land and Dream Buffet in 2022. There were no Kirby releases in 2021, however we did see 3 come out in 2019 and 2020 combined. It's possible they may skip this year as well, though having a smaller title would make sense, especially since there have been 2 minor Kirby releases since Forgotten Land, and there's normally 3 or so spin-offs in between Kirby's major adventures. Alternatively, they could just be putting much of their effort into the next major title on Switch 2, or we may just see the minor title next year. Now, if you recall, when the Mario movie released, Nintendo followed it up with a ton of Mario remakes. Now that a Zelda movie is in production, it's completely possible we may see more Zelda games come to the Switch library. My expectation is that the closer we get to the movie, the more Zelda we'll see. But that doesn't mean they couldn't start capitalizing on the announcement while it's still somewhat fresh. We've been anticipating the release of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD for the past 7 years of the Switch's life, and they still have not released despite a ton of Wii U games making their way over. With a heavy emphasis on re-releases this last full year of the Switch, it may finally be time for these games to launch and help fill in those gaps. Not only that, but these, to me at least, seem more like titles that would launch on the Switch rather than the Switch 2. Drop these early on and then remake other Zelda titles closer to the Zelda movie's launch. Seems like a great strategy to me. For the first 2 predictions I have in the Reach tier, both are series that have fallen out of relevancy in the past decade, Yoshi and Donkey Kong. While they both have presence on Switch already in the form of Crafted World and Tropical Freeze Deluxe, we haven't really heard much from either of these series since 2019. Donkey Kong hasn't even seen a new game since Tropical Freeze. And I don't mean the port from 2018, I mean the original launch on Wii U all the way back in February 2014, which is kind of ridiculous since Tropical Freeze was so well received. Enough time has definitely passed for both of these series to receive a new game, and these IPs are just small enough that they could receive one at the tail end of the Switch's life. However, we know that Retro Studios is occupied with Prime 4, and the developers of the last 3 Yoshi games, Goodfeel and Arzest, both just launched games within the past year, so it's not likely that they're also developing these games. Nintendo may have also just taken these IPs into their own hands with one of their in-house studios, so we'll just have to keep waiting for them to say something. While new games in these series are in the Reach tier, I actually think it's very possible we may see ports of Yoshi's Woolly World and Donkey Kong Country Returns instead. In the case of Yoshi's Woolly World, this game was very well received when it launched on Wii U, and then it was ported to the 3DS. Of the games on the Wii U that I never got the chance to play, I would be very thrilled to play it for the first time on Switch, especially if they added more amiibo costumes for the newest wave of Smash characters, which may even be the reason they've held off for so long in the first place. As for Donkey Kong Country Returns, this game is in a similar boat to Woolly World, where it has both a console and a handheld release already. In general, this game seems like a very safe choice for Nintendo to put more Donkey Kong on Switch without making an entirely new game. Not only that, but Super Nintendo World's Donkey Kong attraction is slated to be done in 2024 in Japan and in 2025 in the US. Donkey Kong has also had a slight relevance boost due to his screen time in the Mario movie, so it kinda seems like there's a lot lining up for at least a small release. Moving on to the other Reach predictions, we have a remaster of F-Zero GX. Last September, we saw F-Zero 99, Nintendo's first major acknowledgement of F-Zero since, With how popular Captain Falcon is and the people wondering when we may see him in another game, I think Nintendo may be potentially trying to weasel F-Zero into relevancy. I strongly believe there's an internal roadmap to increase F-Zero's brand awareness and test whether it's worth pursuing larger projects. It starts with F-Zero 99 and then moves into putting more resources into a remaster for GX. Then, eventually, if the results are there, they may decide to pursue a new entry. I'm making it sound like I'm very confident, but I still put this in the reach tier. My biggest reason is that I feel like it's a little too soon after F-Zero 99, so we'll probably revisit this prediction at a later date. Now, there's one more title that I think could be within the realm of possibility. Normally, alongside the bigger Zelda titles like Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild, we get smaller scale top-down games. The last ones we got were Link's Awakening in 2019, Triforce Heroes in 2015, and A Link Between Worlds in 2013. Seeing as we're 5 years out from the last installment in this line of games, the timing does seem right for a release like this. The developers of the previous two games, Grezzo, does have two games in their portfolio from recent times, Miitopia in 2021 and an Apple Arcade game called Jet Dragon from 2023. Looking at the release timelines, they have worked on a game for Nintendo alongside one of their own games before, so it's possible a new top-down Zelda has been worked on simultaneously. Depending on the scale of the game, I could definitely see this being the first generation Switch's swan song, but just like every other prediction in this tier, it may just be a game held off for Switch 2. Well, that wraps up my predictions for the Direct this June. Fingers crossed we get at least one new major title, but I'm personally not expecting much. If I had to say what set of these I think will happen in the Direct, I'd probably pick these titles as my official prediction. I think based off the contents of this Direct, we'll get a better idea of whether or not we'll see a September Direct this year and what games will be held off for the Switch 2. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.